PreAP Unit 9, Solving Quadratic Equations Retake Review. Quick reminder, when you take your retests, you're going to have problems very similar to these. So if you don't understand a question after this video, make sure you talk to your teacher before attempting the retake. You're going to have these same types of questions, so make sure you understand how to answer all of them. Okay, problem number 1. Bob solved the quadratic, and it gives it to you here, using the steps below. In which step did Bob make a mistake? Okay, well, let's check it out. Step 1, he just rewrote the equation. Step 2, it looks like the 2 is gone and the 18, let's see, it looks like the 2 is gone and the 18 became a 20. So let's make sure that got done correctly. If I was going to get rid of the 2, I would subtract the 2, right? I would subtract the 2 and I would get 16. So it looks like this number is wrong, right? Because we would need to subtract the 2. So my answer is step 2. The mistake was made in step 2. Remember, the mistake that you choose, the step that you choose is where you see something wrong. All right? So the mistake was made going from step 1 to step 2, but you would say step 2 because that's where you see the mistake. All right. I'm looking at this now, and I actually think there's another mistake. I do believe that there are multiple mistakes here. We're going to say, did Bob make his first mistake? All right, he made his first mistake in step 2. All right, question number 2. Between which two integers is there a solution to the equation negative x squared minus 7x plus 6? Well, it's equal to 0, so I'm going to graph this thing, okay? Let's see, we're going to go to y equals, and we're going to put in negative x squared minus 7x plus 6. Let's take a look at my graph. Okay, let's see, I'm going to make it a little bigger. Okay, it looks like there's a solution between 0 and 1. So we're going to put down 0 and 1 in a second, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So between 7 and 8. So you have two answers here. We're going to put both. So we're going to say between 7 and 8, negative 7 and negative 8, right? And between 0 and 1. All right, so there are two answers here. And again, just got it from the graph. Let's look at problem 3. The side length of a square is 5x, and the area of the square is 100 centimeters squared. What are the possible values of x? Well, we're talking about area, so we definitely know that area is equal to length times width. Or I guess if it's a square, they're the same length, aren't they? So I could say side times side. So I'm going to say 5x times 5x, right? It's a square, they're the same, is equal to 100. Well, let's clean this up. This is 25x squared is equal to 100. So to solve this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this 25, and I'm going to do that by dividing both sides by 25. So now I have x squared equals 100 divided by 25, which is 4. So what squared is 4? You probably know it's 2. You could also look at it as we're square rooting both sides of the equation, and I get x equals 2. Now, if you leave it like this, you are half right. We definitely need a plus or minus sign. If you don't have that plus or minus sign, you're missing one of your answers, right? If you were to get it equal to 0 and graph it, you would see two solutions, right? A negative and a positive 2. Let's look at question number 4. Using the quadratic formula. All right, y'all, he just told me to use quadratic formula, so I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to write it. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. All of this is over 2a. Okay, so let's look at my problem here. What is a? A is 1. B is negative 4, right? And then c is 2. So all I got to do now is plug them in. Here we go. We got x equals negative b. Okay, b is in both those places, and b is negative 4. So negative 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So negative 4 squared. All right, what's next? Next we got minus 4a Okay, well, what's A? Okay, A is 1, so I got a 1 in there. And then we have times C, so AC. And in this case, C is 2. All right, all over 2 times A. And what was A? A was just 1. I guess I should probably give C a color here. All right, we'll do blue. If you can get this far, you guys, it's half the battle. By the way, you don't have to memorize this formula because where is it? It's on your formula card, which you will have available to you for this test. You will also have it available to you during STAR, all right? So you can rely on it. So let's clean this up. I'm going to do it in 3 parts. I'm going to do the front first. What is negative negative 4? Well, that's positive 4. You can think about it as the opposite of B. Now we got our plus or minus sign. We got our square root. I'm going to deal with that in a minute. And on the bottom, we got 2 times 1, which is 2. So to finish, I need to know what number is in here. So I'm going to type it in my calculator without the square root. So I'm going to start with the parentheses and do negative 4 squared. By the way, if you don't use parentheses for this, you will be wrong. So we got negative 4 squared minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is 2. And we get 8. All right, we get 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2, right? We're getting the number 8. Now, what is the square root of 8? Ooh, that's a terrible number. I think I typed it in wrong, actually. Let's do the square root of 8, and we get, yeah, ugh. So we got to leave it with a square root, but we can clean it up. And if you can clean it up, you should clean it up. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to color code this for you. I'm going to deal with the square root of 8. So the square root of 8, we can simplify. We can say it's 2 times 4, and we can say 4 is 2 times 2. And so we got 2 times 2 times 2. You need to remember that in these cases, you pull out what you have a pair of, and I have a pair of 2's. So 2 can go outside once. So I'm left with 2 square root of 2. So over here, I've got x equals 4 plus or minus, and then instead of having the square root of 8, we cleaned it up. And we're writing 2 square root of 2, and this is all divided by 2. Now, we have one more step to do in this case because everything can be divided by this 2. All right, so what is 4 divided by 2? All right, well, that's just 2 plus or minus. Remember, this number's off limits. Don't mess with this number. But 2 divided by 2 is just 1. So I can write 1, and then I still have square root of 2. This is optional. You don't have to write that 1, but everything else needs to stay. Right? And that is my final answer. Just to recap, plug in your numbers, clean it up, simplify if possible, plug it back in, and then simplify to be done. It's a lot of steps, but you can do it. All right, question number 5. The graph of a quadratic function is shown below. What is the best estimate of the positive value of x, that's important, positive value of x, for which this function equals 2? Okay, guys, equals 2 literally means, where does it equal 2? Right? Think about that. We spent so much time looking at where it equals 0, right? We looked for zeros, that now it's asking us, well, where does it equal 2? So all we're doing is we're looking at these spots right here, these points. All right, in this case, it's negative 2, 2, and over here we got 6, 2. We only want the one that's positive, right? So the positive value of x would be x equals 6. Next question, question number 6. What would be the first step to solve this quadratic equation? Well, it needs to be equal to 0, so we're going to get it equal to 0 by subtracting 7 from both sides. Now, I cannot add it to either of these. They're not like terms, so I end up with x squared plus 10x, and then that minus 7 just goes on the end. But now I have it equal to 0. That looks like option B. Question 7. In the quadratic equation, x squared minus x plus c equals 0. C represents an unknown constant. If x is negative 5, what is c? Well, let's just write it. It's kind of a weird problem, but we can kind of muddle our way through this one if we just use what we're given. They tell us x is negative 5. So we have to use that. Okay, well then instead of writing x, I'm going to write negative 5. And I got a minus, and again I got negative 5 plus c equals 0. Right, y'all? They told me x was negative 5, so I plugged it in for x. Now, if you don't use parentheses, you will be wrong. This is the second question where that's true. If you don't use parentheses, you guys are going to get messed up. So Use those parentheses. All right, now, still looks super weird, but we can clean it up some more. Negative 5 squared is positive 25. Negative times negative here is going to be a plus 5. Then we have plus c equals 0. Okay, still kind of looks strange, but I see a 25 plus 5, so I can just say, okay, well, 30 plus c is giving me 0. Guys, use your logic. 30 plus what number would give you a 0? I hope you kind of just know, right? It's got to be plus a negative 30, right? That's my answer. If you wanted to fully solve this thing, I mean, you can. You can get rid of that 30 by subtracting it from both sides, and we do get negative 30. But I think we can also use our logic to take that last step. All right, c must be negative 30. Question 8. The function blah, blah, blah is graphed at the right. When does it equal negative 3? I want you to take a second and understand that it's this question again. But they just give you the formula, right? They didn't have to, but they did. It doesn't matter, you guys. They're asking you, when does it equal 3? Sorry, negative 3. So instead of saying, where does it equal 0? We can just look at where does it equal negative 3. Okay? It equals negative 3 here at 0, negative 3. And it equals here at 2, negative 3. Now, it doesn't ask us for which one, but it does say, sorry, what are the values of x, right? It didn't say negative or positive. It said values, right, plural. So we're going to say both. X equals 0 and x equals 2, right? 0 and 2, just one of the x values. That's where it equals negative 3. Now, if you wanted to do plus 3 on both sides and use your calculator, that's fine, but I think it's much easier just looking at the graph you're given. Problem 9. The irregular hexagon below has a perimeter of 78 meters. You guys definitely should know perimeter means to add up all the sides. And then we're asked, what is the value of x? So we're going to add up all the sides. Now, instead of rewriting all this, I'm just going to kind of color code it to help you guys out. I'm going to start with the x squareds. I've got 2x squared plus x squared. Okay, well, I hope we know that that is going to be 3x squared. Now I'm going to look at terms that just have x. All right, I got x and 2x and 2x and x. So if I add those together, I get 4 plus, let's see, 4, 5, I get 6x, right? 6x, because we got 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1. Now we have the leftover constants, and that is 2 plus 1 is 3 plus 7 is 10, and then minus 4 is going to be a positive 6. Okay, and then we can put this equal to the perimeter, which is 78, right? That was given to us. So my next step in solving this problem, I want to get it equal to 0 because I want to see if my calculator can show me the answer. So I'm going to subtract 78 from both sides. Now I've got 3x squared plus 6x. Let's see, 6 minus 78 I think is negative 72, but let's double check. 6 minus 78 is going to give me negative 72. And now it's equal to 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to graph this thing. So let's go to y equals. We're going to graph the quadratic we just found. All right, so 3x squared plus 6x minus 72. And let's take a look at our graph. Okay, we've got a solution at negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so we're going to say x equals negative 6. And then we also get x equals 1, 2, 3, 4. X equals 4. Now, one of those answers I can keep, and one of them I do not want. Remember, when we're talking about lengths, we're going to say no negative lengths. It doesn't make sense. So even though you see both, I want you to cross this out, and I just want you to tell me the positive answer. In this case, x is equal to positive 4. Okay, last problem. Here we go. What is the negative value of x for which 4x squared minus 5x minus 7 equals 0? Round your answer to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So I'm going to start out graphing this because I don't know what it looks like. I apologize for the bell. So let's graph this. 4x squared minus 5x and then minus 7. The negative value of x is what we're looking for. So let's see if I can make it a little bigger for a sec. Well, dang, I can definitely tell that's a fraction. It's not a nice number. Neither is this one, which tells me I'm probably going to have to use the quadratic formula. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get that set up. We're going to plug it in. You can look at the formula on your chart again. Okay, we're going to do negative b, and in this case, b is negative 5. Let's see, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is negative 7. All of this is over 2a. Okay, now if you need to pause and actually write this down or look at the formula chart, that's fine. So let's clean it up here. And you know what, no, I'm not even going to do that. I want to make my life easy, so here's what I'm going to do. I know it's going to be a decimal. It's actually asking me for a decimal. So I'm going to put this in my calculator using only the minus sign because it wants the negative answer. So watch, I'm going to type it in exactly like it looks. First, I'm going to do a fraction, so alpha y equals, and then press enter. So I got a fraction. So I'm going to start with negative parentheses, negative 5 parentheses. Then I'm not using the plus, right? I'm not using the plus and the plus minus. I'm just going to use the minus. I'm thinking this will give me a negative answer, but let's try it. Then I got my square root, and then I've got my parentheses, negative 5 parentheses squared, minus 4 parentheses 4, and then we got that negative 7 up there. Okay. Now I'm going to go down on the bottom, and we got 2a, which I wrote the letter a. That was silly. All right, I need to write the value for a, which is 4. I apologize. So 2 parentheses, 4 parentheses, and we're going to press enter. Remember, I'm only doing it this way because I wanted a decimal. Remember this problem earlier? Remember this problem earlier from here? Say, make sure to use this radical form when you write it. This time it is telling us that it's okay to use decimals. That's the only reason I'm doing it this time. All right, what do we get? We got a negative, yay. All right, so my answer is x equals negative 0.838, but hundredths means 2 decimal places. All right, so you should know the hundredth means 2 decimal places, so I'm going to round to 0.84, 0.84. And that's my answer. Now remember, check my graph one more time. Is that reasonable? Is that kind of what I see here? Yeah, look, it's almost -1. The answer I found was almost -1, so that's a great, easy way just to kind of check and make sure your answer makes sense. Okay, just another quick reminder, your retests are these same problems with different numbers. It's super similar, so make sure you can do these problems by yourself when you take that retake. Good luck.